Hello and welcome to our weekend review. It's review because I have a co-host when we do that, and of course it is Chris Robertshaw. We also have Claire, who's just whizzing from one media interview to another. Thank you, Claire Christian, for being here. And a businesswoman as well, I've labelled you as, because it's important, because Juan Turner, businessman as well, you're a businessman, because it's a lot to do with businesses coming into this conversation. We're talking about Alf Cannon and the next 15 years-ish of the Isle of Man. So let's start, Claire, with you, because when you were there in proceedings, you also asked a couple of questions back at him. But what do you think to the general view that Alf Cannon is laying out for the Isle of Man?
So and obviously you heard my sort of 25 million questions to Alf, which I'm sure he was very grateful for. Obviously, to summarise, my great concerns are, the instant maths, trying to achieve 15,000 people. And even if you bring that back to 2032, so that would be about 10,000 people, and then creating 5,000 jobs, that's only 50% economically active people. So my concern is we should be looking at having a higher percentage of economically active people. The second part is obviously the infrastructure. Can we support that? It's about 1,000 people, new population per year. We don't have those resources right now. I think it was Laurie Hooper said we were down a third doctors currently, so we're going to have to replace that. And 20%. Was it 20%? Replace that and obviously bring in more. So we've got a lot to do.
What do you think overall? I mean, what would you give him, marking his books?
I had huge criticisms in terms of, although I have had a response from the Chief Minister on my criticism of were self-employed people consulted on this. The response was they don't know. They could have been within the sort of small businesses and etc. So, we've just come out of COVID. We know that small businesses and self-employed people make up 70% of the economy. Where is the strategy for that? So there's huge concerns from me. It's about liaising with self-employed people, saying what struggles are you having? What needs do you need? What strategy do we need to formulate for them? It's not about sectors necessarily. It's about people, individuals that should we not have those individuals, then that would be quite critical to the Isle of Man. And fair enough, if we lose some of the bigger sectors, that's obviously a large crisis, but the self-employed people and small businesses are literally the backbone, and I always say this, of our economy. And it's what gives us diversity as well.
You're nodding away there?
Yeah, I think Claire's absolutely right. But if I can draw your attention to section 5221, it reads as follows. This is the KPMG report on the subject in under consideration. Is
this the 44-page one or the 600-page one?
147-page.
147-page one. Which part? Part two. Okay.
So you're talking inches, really, more than anything.
As noted,
how many trees were brought down?
Now, Claire's question to the Chief Minister was, have SMEs, I think as I recall, been considered? Yeah, consulted. And in this particular section, it says, as noted in Phase 1, Part 1 of the report, approximately 94% of businesses in the Isle of Man are considered to be SMEs.
Wow.
And,
91.
94%. Did I say 91? 94.
That's incredible.
And there isn't a clarity as to whether they have been consulted. I mean, it's jaw-dropping, quite honestly. But I had real problems with this report in a whole range of areas, and programs of this length only allow you to delve into certain aspects of it. But what I want to focus on is the sheer hypocrisy of it. We've got a government which is excessively bloated. It simply cannot grasp the issue of productivity. And I've been arguing this case now for as long as I care to remember. You've heard me in there in your time. And government cannot deliver productivity in its own right. And yet what it wants to do with these proposals is take more tax off SMEs in order to give it them back, to encourage them to be productive. You couldn't make it up. You really couldn't make it up. Government itself has got to address its major failings. And yet, what we look at right at the end of this report, under the section Next Steps, the first thing they're going to look at is taxation. This whole report is, well, for those of us in business, the whole issue of the demographic changes and the big impacts that were coming down the road have been with us now for 10 to 15 years. There's nothing new about this. It's like as if they've just discovered something. Most of the stuff in the KPMG report to a business person is obvious and self-evident. What government is doing is, as it were, sucking in the tax available that they can see. I mean, originally they said, oh, look, we're only going to apply corporation tax to international businesses so that we could comply with international taxation parameters. But now they're talking about all and every business is going to be subject to taxation. And then they're going to deem themselves capable and competent enough to give it back in certain areas to improve our productivity and our efficiency. I'm sorry. Government's losing credibility at a hell of a rate here. We've just gone through the whole Rosalind Ranson affair where integrity at a very high level was called into question in no uncertain terms. And now the government has the audacity to say, we're going to concern ourselves with productivity and efficiency in the private sector. Well, I say no, go away and learn yourselves how to become a smaller, smarter government, because if they don't do that, we're in deep trouble. And as far as I can see, they're not willing to do this. To be fair to KPMG, they do say in this report, actually, this is only half the issue. We're looking at one side of it. The other half is government itself. I have gone on till I'm sick to death of the subject, saying, for goodness sake, get organised, slim down, focus your funds on frontline services, and they simply will not do it.
And this is something, and I'm as I say, I printed off today. I said to you earlier that these huge lengths of pieces of work that have come out. I haven't discovered in there what the government's strategy is on, where's KPMG's sort of looking at them. So my criticism was on the day was we've paid for a report, but actually they've not even, the Isle of Man government strategy isn't actually part of that. And we're one of the biggest employers. And so I'm slightly concerned from that perspective. You look at other jurisdictions, you look at Jersey's economic report, they talk about their government, what their government strategy is within it. And it's sensible. I mean, I don't know about you, but I haven't found that part yet. So there may be.
No, it's not there. And KPMG say it's not there. But what right has government got to come to 94% of the economy effectively and say, we need more money from you to run our government. But by the way, we're bloated and we're inefficient and we're not productive. Okay. It will go from concern through serious irritation to anger.
Absolutely.
Yes, June.
Yes, I mean, Chris is absolutely right. I mean, one of the best things the Isle of Man government can do for business on the island is to keep out of the way. Because dealing with the Manx government is like, and I've said it, I've even said this in my time in Tynwald, it's like swimming through treacle. You've got obstructive departments, you've got obstructive officers. We'll start with the position no, and then we'll work from there. There isn't a can-do attitude because you've got departments fighting with each other. And I've not read a lot of this report, and I'll tell you why. Because through all my time in Tynwald, we've had report after report on everything about everything, and they end up on the shelf. They're just, a lot of them, have delivered very little. And I think the biggest problem, as Chris says, is the government has become so huge in its employer. How on earth are you going to scale that down? It's almost like we're at a stage in the Isle of Man where we're not affordable the way it's going, and all this report means is we're all going to be paying more money to support the government. I mean, I don't know what the percentage is of population that works for government, but it must be getting.
I said 1 in 4, but I think
it must be
higher than that, isn't it?
It's got to be higher than that.
Well, of the last 3 examinations that have gone on by external consultants, DOI, education, and very recently with Stephen Waller looking at a review of the AG's department, which is a shambles. I made the point consistently on each occasion. I've said, please, when you're putting the report together, when you get up to all three, Beeman's twice and Stephen Waller once, when you get up first thing in the morning, repeat the mantra, there's only 83 or 84,000 people on the Isle of Man. And when you go to sleep, just before you go to sleep, say, yes, I must remember. What we keep getting are these bloated proposals that come forward that are much more akin to a much bigger organisation and bigger jurisdiction, as is England, than it is here. They just don't work. Fortunately, the education department has slimmed and trimmed it down.
But we have too many functions. The Isle of Man government are doing too many functions.
Yeah.
I'll just give you a small example. And this was something a former police inspector told us. Take vehicle licensing, for example. Now, we have our own registrations, but the DVLA have a system where they could manage that on our behalf. Why are we doing it all? You know, we want to have our own registration system, that's fine. But why can't these functions go back to the UK? We do have a lot of functions here that are handled on our behalf by the UK, and we should be getting rid of half of these things and letting them do it. We've got all sorts of regulatory authorities that really we don't have to do ourselves.
Okay, let me go up a few levels here in terms of Alf's specific statement that the aim is to increase the population to 100,000. I mean,
that's to pay for that, for this lot.
Well, hang on.
It's £1 million, something.
The point being is, what is it essentially that's going to make that possible? First of all, in that report, it talks about completely rebalancing the income tax system. It makes absolutely no mention at all of national insurance. Income tax collects 22% of government income, according to this report. NI, national insurance, collects 21%, so they're close together. I have been banging my head against a brick wall for years over the fact that the way NI contributions work on the Isle of Man, they're thoroughly inequitable. The tax system is more equitable. And yet it's the tax system that KPMG wishes to readjust without any mention whatsoever for the wholly inadequate and inequitable methodology that we use for NI. Now, what is it that they've said in this report? They've said, well, let's keep it simple. Let's take the tax allowance, personal tax allowance that we've all got, from, was it 14,500, more or less 14,500, up to 22,500. Okay? Now, if you do the numbers on that, that effectively means that's the core of what's going to get all these extra scores of thousands of people over, well, tens of thousands of people over onto the Isle of Man. It boils down to about £4.40 extra in your pocket a day. Now, glibly, KPMG mentioned the fact that, well, actually, there's demographic stress now in certain European countries. Actually, that's almost completely wrong. The whole demographic strain now is running right through Europe and many other nations of the world. It's, do we think that doing something of that nature is going to draw young people over to the Isle of Man? When in fact England, Wales, Scotland will be doing all they possibly can to keep their people there. It's breathtaking that they think that would work. And then, of course, they say, well, unadjusted, this will cost around about 60 to 70 million pounds. Okay, so they're going to pass that tax up to higher income people. That was the very reason given to me by Treasury a few years ago as to why they can't make national insurance equitable. One is baffled by the pushing and shoving that's going on. What we'll end up with, I'll tell you this, what we're going to end up with, Paul, is we're going to end up with an SME community significantly taxed, increasingly controlled.
That's exactly what's going on.
We're going to disenfranchise or find that our better off community are going to start leaving the island, and we will not recover the young people that are looking for through the tax system. Frankly, it's a dangerous proposal and it needs chucking out. and brought back in another form when government itself has told the business community of the Isle of Man how they're going to get their act together, because at the moment it's pathetic.
And Chris,
Sorry to go on.
No, and Chris, you've really highlighted so many important areas there, and you're absolutely right. We're looking very hypocritical if we can't get our own house right. We're looking at other businesses to do that. I think what's a huge risk as well is we're not the only jurisdiction that are coming up with an economic strategy.
Absolutely.
And we're one of 3 islands. Jersey and Guernsey have got really robust strategies, and they're also looking to attract. They're also looking at these same kind of initiatives, and I don't see us standing out, and I don't see us being the better island, quite frankly.
Well, we haven't. I've said this about the difference, though, Claire, between Jersey and Guernsey always strike you, and I always use it as a travel comparison. They're very much a first and business class destination for business and for their whole image. We're like economy class here, and we're just not. I mean, Chris talks about all these people coming in that they're claiming to. What are they going to do when they get here?
Well, there's no retail strategy. I mean, I think there was one, Chris, you might remember, 2008. Maybe, I think, was the last retail strategy.
Yes,
and
It's in the same drawer as all the other reports.
Probably.
Well, that one will,
hospitality strategy. We need these strategies to support this. I mean, my background is retail. That's heavily where my business information is from. I'm at the coalface. I see what's happening out there, and the reports that are coming out now saying that, lifestyle prices aren't really going up. I know my prices in my store have doubled, and that's because I've got higher gas. This is just me on a micro business. My suppliers have got the same increases in their gas, in transport, in everything really. And so that cost is honestly it's going to have an effect on my prices, and I'm passing that on to my customers. And I'm not the only business that's doing that. And we may not be seeing the ramifications of that quite as fast, because there's obviously a bit of a bounce back from COVID and things, but we are going to start seeing it. And, as chair of the EPRC, we asked Cura, did they foresee gas prices levelling out, going up higher, not this winter, but next winter? And they, the chair said that he foresaw it not going up, but probably about the same. So we've got a scenario where the next year and a half, those prices aren't going anywhere. Our prices for our goods and services aren't going anywhere. People are not going to have the same amount of disposable income. Businesses are going to be suffering because of that, because they're not going to be making the same revenue no matter what. This strategy doesn't deal with that in itself, this short impending crisis that we are going into. And no one likes to say it. Yes, we're not in a recession. We've got lots and lots of indicators that are heading that way. We need to see a reduced revenue in an economy before that's identified. But I see it happening now, and I'm sure as other business owners, I'm sure you're probably seeing similar things. I'm not selling the quantities I used to. Revenue's sort of balancing off, but that's because my prices have gone up.
Just final word in this first section, then on this particular part of it, how's it affecting you?
Well, since leaving Tynwald, a lot of my own work is actually off the island now. I mean, but obviously I'm quite connected to it through the radio station. We talk to a lot of our customers, and they are feeling the pinch out there. But a lot of these costs they're facing are due to the size of the Isle of Man government and the charges that they're putting on. And if we had a smaller government, then the charges wouldn't need to be so high. I mean, we bought the steam packet. I know we don't want to go off too much on a tangent, but all the costs for most businesses' supplies are down to the cost of freight. Mm-hmm. Now, I appreciate we're into fuel of running the ship and all the rest of it, but the government bought the shipping company, and there's an opportunity there for them to, if they're going to subsidise anything, it would be better to subsidise the freight, because everything in this room has come in on that ship. From this microphone to the table we're sat at, it has an effect. So there's a lot of costs that are in control of the government that could be reduced. But what we are doing is we are propping up an overinflated administration for 84,000 people. And that is what we've got to look at. If we can scale that down, we can impact the cost of living a lot better.
I mean, sorry, Chris, just to say, very quickly, just to say, what's the impact that the Isle of Man government believes in terms of their staffing levels, the size of the government, that this strategy, you know, what's the impact on government for that? Are we looking at it growing even more? I mean,
he would be drawn when I asked him about that.
Without a doubt.
You know, so we're not. Yeah. No one's going. It's.
Well, if they're going to intervene with SMEs, take tax off those companies, spend the time trying to work out how they're going to give some of it back to encourage, from their perspective, productivity, then the answer to that is, without doubt, yes. Yeah. But quite honestly, I think we're in a really serious situation now. I think government is drowning. I think it's drowning because coming down, you know, the track very, very fast now is the emptying of the public sector pension fund. So that's going to deliver, I don't know, say £40 million costs. You've got this proposal here. You've got the fact that to reinvent the whole grid, electrical grid to the Isle of Man is going to cost about something in the region of £1.5 billion. Reassembling houses to make sure they're properly insulated. Let me finish this because this is important.
We'll do the next section.
£1.5 billion as well. I just, in addition to that, we've got to spend more money on frontline services because we're overspending in health now, and yet we're 20% down on staffing. That baffles the mind from a business perspective.
A whole new level with Manx Care, though.
Oh, well, don't take me there, for goodness sake.
We're going to take
Shut
a break.
me up.
No, there's loads more. I wasn't expecting to be quite so down this route, to be honest. I thought there was going to be some, you know, people saying, well done, he's doing something, but that's not the opinion so far. But you're business people, and that's...
I'm not saying Alf isn't doing a good job.
No.
Alf is just one man.
Captain
in a
of this
massive
ship.
machine that he can't entirely steer. So you've got to remember, it's not a case of saying he's doing a terrible job, you know, let's get rid of him, do a Boris on him. The point is that, as I said at the very beginning, we've seen report after report, the Isle of Man government and its whole system doesn't change. And it's whether it's because we don't have parties, so there's no actual control. You've got 24 people, all with their own ideas, and somewhere in the middle, and it just drifts around. Okay. The civil service still run the Isle of Man.
When you said parties, I thought you meant like a Boris party at number 10 for a minute.
No, well, we have one of those.
Okay, there's loads more on this, and we have it more in our next section.